Assalamu alaikum, everybody, and welcome to another episode of the Geek Dhaba podcast. Joining me today are Kanza, Sameen, and Junaid, and we're going to be talking about something interesting. Rewind. Nope, didn't work. I wish I could time travel. Speaking of which, today's discussion is about time travel. People. How often have you wanted to time travel?
Always.
All the time. All the time.
So much.
There's so many things. I want to time travel to 2012 and invest in Bitcoin.
I have to do so much which cannot be even discussed in video.
So many things to do. Anyway, so that's the theme of today's discussion. We'll be talking generally about time travel. So I think it's time that we open up the dhaba. Time travel. Time travel is like the central theme of a lot of different movies and TV shows. Um, let's pick an example. Let's not pick a major example. Let's pick like an obscure example of time travel, right? Let's talk about Time Squad. Like that show was on drugs when it came to time travel, right? So that had an interesting premise. I want to hear your guys' thoughts on the premise of what Time Squad was. Those of you who have seen Time Squad.
I think I have seen it, but I don't remember one
Wait,
bit of it.
wait, you guys haven't seen Time Squad?
I think
No.
I have seen it, but I don't remember it. The
I don't think I've
cartoon one,
seen
right?
it.
Yeah. Okay. So let me give you guys a brief introduction of what Time Squad was. Time Squad was this TV show that basically dealt with American history for the most part. And what it did was it was a way to teach children about American history, but its time travel rules were that time travel gets messed up on its own. Like time messes up on its own, right? So Sigmund Freud, instead of being a psychologist, ends up, opening a milk shop. So now they have to go back in time and fix it. That's not an actual episode. He does something else. Sigmund Freud, I forget what he does. I think he scares people instead of in dissecting their dreams. But I forget the episode. One episode I do remember is the creator of the cotton gin, which was to separate cotton from the crops. So the inventor of that instead invented flesh-eating robots. So they would go around eating people's flesh. And they had to go back in time, stop the flesh-eating robots, and then convince him to make the cotton gin. Right. So
Yeah,
that
people
was that is an interesting take on time travel. The mere thought that time is not constant and that some time just messes up on its own, and then you have to go and fix it. So what do you guys think about that concept of time travel?
It sounds interesting, but again, like I haven't seen the series, but again, it's interesting. Like sort of like what Marvel is doing in the upcoming series. What if, what if this has happened instead of that? So let's see what happens. It's interesting, right?
the only thing I remember
Like,
about cartoons time travel is from the Powerpuff Girls or Danny Phantom once going to the future. And because they were going to the future, so that doesn't really change the time.
like even Samurai Jack, that was all time
Mhm.
travel.
Yeah, but they're going
Like
to the future mostly, right? In the cartoons.
still time travel.
Yeah.
Okay, so interesting thing. I think I have some points about Samurai Jack and Powerpuff Girls that we can discuss. Okay, so let's talk about Powerpuff Girls first. And I'm sure we've all seen this episode of Powerpuff Girls because it gave us nightmares as kids. The one where the Powerpuff Girls travel to the future and everything becomes like this dystopian future. I'm pretty sure everybody remembers that episode.
Yeah.
Oh God. Of that episode.
Okay, so that episode.
No, thank you.
Let me just say, no wonder we are also messed up.
Oh, no wonder.
There's a lot of other things that were messed up because of, but yeah.
A lot of other things.
So
Yeah.
that episode had a very interesting concept of time travel. So usually when we discuss people traveling into the future, some aspects don't cover what would have happened in that scenario. But in this scenario, if the Powerpuff Girls traveling to the future, they address it. They say, okay, oh, the Powerpuff Girls ran so fast that they no longer existed for so long.
Yeah.
Right? Because they didn't pop back
Yeah.
until they were in the future. So they just disappeared. And because they weren't there, stuff happened. Now, I think that's a very realistic take on time travel. Like if I time travel now into the future, right? Let's say I travel 10 years into the future. Now, obviously, there's no mayor for those 10 years,
Yeah.
right? So when the Powerpuff Girls travel 50 years into the future, there are no Powerpuff Girls for 50 years.
Yeah. And then when they finally pop out in the future, they feel the effects of that, like what's happened to everyone.
Exactly. So it's just, it's more realistic. Now we talk about Samurai Jack, which, by the way, I haven't seen the final season of, so I don't know how what the conclusion was on that time travel front.
Yeah,
Let's
I
not.
haven't seen the final either.
Yes, we can. Has everyone seen the Kim Possible movie, Straight in Time?
I
Yeah,
saw that when it came out so many years ago.
many years back. Yeah.
I still see it sometimes, right now, every now and then.
I haven't seen it in years.
So
Okay,
basically,
I had
again,
personal.
what was happening in the future? Like they were going back in the past and manipulating it so that that future happens. So then there's also that kind of time travel that you manipulate stuff from the future in the past, and then just to ensure that the current past where you're manipulating stuff from actually happens.
Yeah.
I think even Terminator can be put into that category, and like X-Men, Days of Future Past.
Yeah.
Like you're manipulating the past from the future to ensure that that future happens.
Future happen. Yeah.
I mean, in that case, we have predestination, which follows the same rule. Predestination and Looper as well. But the case with Looper is that they send the criminals back in time to be executed. So they're still back in time, but they don't have a future anymore, which is messed up. But okay.
I mean, the idea of predestination comes into play often, actually. If you talk about Days of Future Past, like Samin said, in Days of Future Past, no matter what everybody did, the future didn't change. Right? They tried really, really hard. So then it just became the idea that, the future was predestined. It was meant to happen that way. Beast even talks about it in that episode. And he says, in that movie, I mean, he says, okay, the ripple effect. He had a very apt definition. Okay, you drop a pebble in the water, it bounces out into the other parts and creates ripples, but eventually the river does flow back into its proper stream. Right? So
you can't change fate thing. You can't change what's
Exactly.
already predestined.
exactly. But obviously they did go back and say, you know what, that thing we said like half an hour earlier about not being able to change time, screw that.
The best example for this, Agents of Shield.
Yeah.
Whatever
Oh
you
my
do,
god, yes.
it comes back.
For sure.
Do you know what, like, the most let's actually, you know what, I want to ask you guys something about time travel paradoxes.
No.
Right, there's so many. I mean, we're not going to be talking in detail about a lot of the different types of time travels right now, but like just generally over the top, let's talk about time travel paradoxes, specifically Flash season 1 finale's paradox.
I haven't
It's
seen
been
it.
so long, I don't even remember that anymore.
Let me tell you guys give you guys a brief overview of what that finale was. Season 1 ka. Flash is fighting Reverse Flash, right? Flash is unable to beat Reverse Flash. And because he's unable to beat Reverse Flash, Eddie Thawne, the ancestor
Mhm.
of Eobard Thawne, shoots himself,
Yeah.
and that makes Eobard Thawne disappear.
Oh yeah. Oh
So,
yeah. Oh yeah. That.
but here's the thing: because all of this happened, right? Technically, shouldn't shouldn't Eddie shooting himself have made Eobard not have come back in time in the first place because he's the ancestor no longer exists for the future person to exist, and therefore
Exactly.
he wouldn't have come back in
And
time to
therefore,
create the Flash.
yeah, exactly. And therefore, his mom would still be alive.
Exactly. So like,
Yeah.
eh, like these little paradoxes. It really. I remember me, Amar, and my cousin. We spent a whole 3 hours like with a paper and pen trying to figure out the scientific logic behind it.
No,
Yeah, I did that too. I mean, like, I tried to sit, and because of the fact that I watched it alone, I
I just
sat
want to
there with
ask. I just want to ask, how much of a headache did you have by the end of it?
Oh, I needed 3 Panadol.
I just burned the papers I used up because I was still confused by the end. So I was like, you know what? F it. And then I just put everything on the stove and I just like lit it on fire. And I was like, you know what? It's fine. It happened.
You see, it happened, but it doesn't make sense. It's the same thing with the Flashpoint paradox,
Yeah.
right? Barry goes back in time, stops his mother from dying, then ends up not having powers. Because he doesn't have powers, he shouldn't have been able to go back in time in the first place.
Exactly. I mean, I mean, especially when this happens in so many TV shows and everything as well, that they travel back in time to fix it, and then when they come back, the future is completely different, and then they lose the purpose that they needed to time travel for.
I mean, um at least Flashpoint paradox in the title acknowledges that it's a paradox.
Yeah,
Right? It's like, hey, this thing
Yeah.
shouldn't be possible, but hey, it happened.
we were warning you beforehand.
Right?
Yeah. Yeah. Good luck. Keep your meds on hand.
The
Only,
thing,
yeah.
yeah, yeah,
Go ahead, go ahead. No, I'm saying the only thing which caused me a headache was not time travel, but it was close to time travel. It was a dream inside the dream inside the dream. If you know
uh,
what I meant.
Inception?
The first time I watched it, it caused me a headache.
So let's put this down in a podcast episode in the
Mm.
future. But like, I really want to discuss Christopher Nolan's movies. I think people are giving them a lot more credit than they deserve. And by that, I mean, people seem to, this is a different discussion altogether, but we'll have a podcast episode on it. But what people seem to say that, you need to watch Christopher Nolan's Inception. Wait, it's Christopher Nolan, right? Yeah.
Yeah.
Inception, Tenet, and Interstellar a few times to understand it. I honestly don't believe that for a second. I watched Tenet, Interstellar, Inception,
Yeah. Like,
and I got
if you actually think about it, you can understand them the first time round. Like, I don't know why so many people had a problem even following like the different timelines, I would say, or like the different time differences in the Witcher show, the Netflix one. Like, uh, halfway through, you start understanding that okay, these are all events happening at different points in time. They're not like happening parallel to each other, but people still had
Again,
difficulty understanding that. Mm.
the thing with Inception was that we understood the movie, we understood it the
Mm.
first time. The only
Yeah.
problem with what was confusing was, are they in reality or are they still in dream? That's the
Mm.
only confusing part. That's it. That's it. And the
it.
first time you don't really get it.
But that again was left to the viewer's interpretation. Like,
Yeah.
even when in the end, when the top is spinning and like for a second you think that maybe it's about to stop, but again, even that bit was like left to the viewer's interpretation. The
Yeah.
director has said himself, okay, it's up to you, decide what you want.
All right. We've kind of veered off topic when it comes to time travel, but paradoxical time travel, we've talked about briefly. Simple time travel that is in everything. But like I think the biggest offender when it comes to simple time travel has been Back to the Future.
Yeah, that it is.
Right, because you guys have seen that viral video that went along, right, about the Twin Pines Mall and the Lone Pine Mall.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, yeah,
Oh
Right?
my.
The one which he discarded from the car and it becomes a lone
yeah,
one.
Yeah.
yeah.
So like that is an example of simple time travel. Like it works, right? You go back in time, you change something, it changes something in the future, right? Marty went back, he drastically changed the past, like by almost dating his mother, and then coming, man, that movie is sick. I need to watch it again. Anyway, uh, he comes back to a future that's completely different than when he left,
Yeah, yeah.
right? By the end of the first movie. And that makes sense. There are movies where they go back in time, they fix something, and the future remains exactly the same. That makes zero sense to me.
Yeah, that makes zero sense for sure.
Right? I mean, I don't know. Then there's other movies, like the only the only idea of it coming into my head right now is Harry Potter 3, right? Where time travel is part of the
Oh my.
plot, right?
Oh, that movie, honestly.
Right? Where
I mean,
That was the Prisoners of Azkaban, right?
yeah, the Prisoner of
Yep.
Azkaban.
yeah.
Yeah. The save Sirius, and it turns out that that was Harry from the future who was saving Harry from the past, and then he doesn't
Yeah.
notice it. Oh wow. Okay.
And
That
for some
Like, which
reason,
is
nobody
why
noticed
he
it.
was so confused about it being his dad because of the whole Patronus thing, because it's the same as his dad's.
No, maybe because he saw a little silhouette, and obviously it's emphasized so much in every book that he looks so much like his father, except for your eyes. You have your mother's eyes.
Oh, I hate that line so much.
the interesting thing about the Harry Potter 3 time travel,
Yeah.
as much as I criticize it, it is the most realistic interpretation of time travel in my opinion.
It is. I mean, like Hermione stuck to what she was supposed to do. She planned
Hmm.
it out. I mean, she
Hmm.
saw herself probably. She's the one that saw herself before, and she was like, "What is that sound?" But then she chose to ignore it, and like that was pretty. That was a pretty smart decision because otherwise it would have led to a whole big mess again.
Yeah, but I agree with that. But like the reason I'm saying it's the most realistic interpretation is because um the okay, so like if somebody goes back in time and does something, like let me give you an example, right? Let's say in Big Bang Theory, right? I know some of you haven't seen Big Bang Theory. I think at least one of you hasn't seen Big Bang Theory at least.
I have seen her.
Okay, so
Anyone
like
hasn't seen
I
her? Okay.
haven't.
Are you
Okay.
trying to start an argument about Big Bang Theory here? I mean, like,
no,
is that what you're after?
No.
no, but like
Moving
there
moving on.
there is a point in Big Bang Theory that I'm trying to make. A character is
Yes.
about to get married in Big Bang Theory, and they say that if my future self came to me and told me not to marry you right now, I'd still marry you,
Uh-huh.
right? And the reason for that being, which is the most logical interpretation of time travel, in my opinion, is because for me to have come back in time to stop me from marrying you, I had to have married you in the first place,
Yeah.
Yeah.
Uh-huh.
right?
Yeah.
So because time travel is in a closed, like the interpretation that time travel is in a closed loop, right? So like
Hmm.
nothing can happen outside of this loop. So if time travel is
Hmm.
possible, it will happen and it won't affect the future because it would have happened in the past,
Hmm.
Yeah.
right? Like I don't know if that I felt like that sounded a bit confusing, but essentially,
No, it's fine.
right?
Basically, if he hadn't married her, then future him wouldn't be coming back to tell him not to.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So and that's
So he has to marry her so that future him can come back and tell him not to.
exactly.
Yeah.
And that is why I say that the Harry Potter interpretation of time travel is the most realistic because none of the events in Harry Potter 3 would have happened the way they did unless they traveled back in time, which is the
Yeah.
whole closed loop concept. It wouldn't have happened unless they travel back.
I guess
It's like
that's
one
where.
of those things that
Okay, we're,
ties up.
we're also slightly veering into like deja vu categories here.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, yeah, it is time travel. It would be a bit of a mess if we didn't see the same thing twice. But does anybody else have any examples of time travel they want to talk about? Because I feel like I could talk about time travel for ages.
Okay. I mean, if you're gonna talk
Terminator.
about time travel,
Let's talk about your
I'm sorry.
background.
Yes.
Okay.
The show that is built on the concept of time travel, it has the time travel in the name. I cannot begin to explain how good of a show that is, but that's a whole different thing.
It's all wibbly wobbly.
But
There's all kinds of rules being
time
thrown around.
travel, oh, I mean, there is no physics behind it at all. They end up in the right place at the right time, just either out of coincidence or it is just the TARDIS being the TARDIS. And they just end up being there. And the doctor is always like, please do not do anything that is going to ruin the plot. But however, they still end up ruining things, and somehow they end up having to work things out in a way that things are not changed 10 years in the future. Like they have to make sure that everything works out the way it's supposed to. But even then, you see these tiny little changes in the show because of the things that they do that leads to some sort of change in the future. Like this episode where Queen Victoria, I think, is were bit by a werewolf. I think everybody remembers that
I
episode.
remember that episode.
Yeah.
Yeah. So like just in like that in that episode, what happened was that she was crushed by a werewolf, and then Rose is like, "So what? The royal family is full of werewolves." So then they mentioned that in the 20th century, by then probably the gene has mutated enough to actually make them into werewolves.
So I'm going to go hide under my table after I say this. But I hate the concept of time travel in Doctor Who. I hate the rules of time travel in Doctor Who.
Cons, I know where he lives. Let's do it.
I have his address as well. I've showed up to his house. I can.
Now, let me
Why?
explain. Let me explain.
Yeah.
Right?
Okay.
That's because
You might be wrong, but okay.
the rules of time travel in Doctor Who itself is very confused.
Here's the thing, it's all wibbly wobbly. There's not as such many rules as there is winging it.
Yes,
You should.
that as far as the winging it part is, I agree. Right, there's a lot of winging it, except when they expressly state rules of time travel and then ignore them.
Exactly.
Right, they expressly state, "Oh, we're gonna leave right now, right? And we're going to travel 100 years together, and it's going to be like 1 second for you." And then he does. The Ninth Doctor travels away for 100 years alone before coming back for Rose, and it only took 5 seconds for him to come back. Okay? But when he leaves with Rose and decides to come back after 2 months, it's been a year.
Yeah, but see, that was an actual mistake that happened. He did not land on the right time spot. He had mistaken the date and the time for an exactly 1 year apart. This is actually covered in the podcast as well that they do on
that he did. That I'll agree is a mistake. But then they ignored this every other time they come back to the present.
Yeah.
Every
I
other
can tell him
time,
he's quite bothered by this.
every other time they come back to the present, it is not a few seconds later or a few minutes later. It is days, months, years later.
Okay, see, but the thing in that is that by then Rose's mother already knows, and you've already seen like half, and you've seen already only half of season 2. So like, shush.
Yeah. Like, wait until Matt Smith's run starts and you'll be like,
Okay,
what
they
even?
yes. Okay. See, the thing about that then is that when Rose's mother Jackie actually knows that what is going on in Rose's life and how she's time traveling and stuff, and the doctor gives Rose a phone which she can use from any point in the world, from any given time, then it's totally fine. Then when she just stops by, whether 2 months from now or like 6 months from now, that part was covered.
But how do they decide when it should be 2 months or 3 months or 6 months?
They don't. As long as he ends up right in the right time frame, it doesn't matter.
No, see, but the concept of the TARDIS and time travel should be that they choose the time and date that they land, right? So they choose to land 2 days later, or 3 days later, or
Okay,
2 months later.
but here's the thing: the TARDIS has a mind of its own, and it's like, ha, you thought.
Not to mention, they do not show everything on the show. Parts of the show is actually covered in an audio podcast. So there are a lot
Yeah.
of things that happened in the podcast episodes that don't happen on the show. Like when I told you about season 1 when we were watching the Ninth Doctor, what happened was even that originally there were supposed to be 4 more episodes in the season. But because of some mishaps, they had to cut down the show because Eccleston's whole thing happened where he was no longer supposed to be the Ninth Doctor. So they had to cut down the show to 12 to 13 episodes. The rest were released as audio files. So there was a lot of things that weren't covered in the show about time travel as well. Because that's when Rose, Jackie, and Mickey started learning what time travel was.
I mean, okay, I understand that there's podcast stuff, but like as like I said, the rules of time travel in Doctor Who are confusing, and I don't like them. Maybe if I watch a bit more, it'll make a bit more sense. But they genuinely
What do you
piss me off.
mean maybe if you watch? What do you mean
Maybe.
maybe if you watch?
As
Maybe.
in, I will watch more, but maybe they will make sense later.
No, they
No,
won't.
they won't. They won't.
They
They're
won't
just gonna
ever.
get worse. They're just gonna get worse. Just saying.
Yeah, so
It's why.
just throw. Basically, now you just throw logic out the window most of the
Just,
time.
Yeah.
I don't know.
Just enjoy it. Yeah.
You mean what do you mean theological? When you're telling me that telephone boots don't travel through time naturally?
No, they don't.
I have one near
We
my
don't know
home.
that.
Let's try it.
We don't know that. We don't know that.
You never know. Okay, so another arc in the Doctor Who show, Jack Harkness. Sameen probably knows that what I'm thinking right now, but
Yeah.
just like Jack Harkness, that guy is from the 50th century ahead. He he travels through something on his wrist, and what happens during his timeline is that he ends up bringing a whole blimp into the existence during the World War. And the technology that he was using, the flights he was showing, they were used as well, but they don't come up in future episodes when Winston Churchill comes up in the episodes in the future. He's just looking at the screen like,
A man has that.
My
End my
brain,
life now,
my
please.
brain is
Space.
broken when it comes to the logics of Doctor Who and time
It's
travel.
it's
that's
fine.
the
Your
fun
brain
of
will be
that's
mush.
the fun of
Your
it.
brain will be mush. Broken is nothing.
See, that's what I'm
I say
saying.
I say we shift Doctor Who to an entirely separate episode of its own.
Oh, it's getting an episode of its own
Yes.
before the new
Oh,
season
it
drops
is.
this year,
I will make sure of it.
right? It's definitely getting a discussion. We're probably going to tear up all the doctors. That'd be fun. Anyway,
So
Yes.
moving back to time travel in general. Let's rewind and go back to time travel.
we'll go back into time travel as long as we agree that the rules of Doctor Who suck when it comes to time travel. Anyway, uh, I think
I'm
that
just planning a murder.
when it comes to time travel, there are no hard and fast rules. I think that the best rule is the Harry Potter one and the one that Sheldon says in the Big Bang Theory, the closed loop rule. I think that is the one that makes the most sense when it comes to time travel, and it's the one that should be like openly believed, right? Well, obviously, let's discuss talking about that in a lot more detail. Let us know if you want us to do a spin-off. But yeah, that would be the best one. But I think that the next one that I like the most after closed loop is Endgame's interpretation of time travel.
Yeah. Branch
particle.
realities, possible branch realities.
Yeah, versions of, like, if I go back in time and shoot Hitler, right? For like, if instead of he killing himself, I shoot him.
Or as
Dude,
Rhodey said, why can't we
there-
just go back in time and like baby Hitler, baby Thanos, and
Junaid, you were saying something?
yeah.
There are speculations that Hitler was not really dead and he died recently, so don't really know.
Okay, that's a different discussion. We're not discussing
Now,
conspiracies right now.
That's a different thing.
Right? Well, time traveling Hitler can we talk about in a different episode. Anyway, uh, the reason I bring this up is because, like, obviously, if I do that, it doesn't change what happened. It doesn't change history. It just
Wait,
changes
what? How is you killing Hitler not change history? You killing Hitler
because
not change history?
it now changes the history I come back to, but the history that I left would remain unchanged.
Yeah.
parallel universe.
Right? That is the end game rule. The end game wala rule is, let's talk about it in terms of the Avengers. We go back and we stop Thanos from snapping, right?
Mhm.
But stopping Thanos from snapping doesn't change that the snap happened. It just means that when the future that we come back to now doesn't is the future that didn't have the snap. But the future we left to come here still has the snap and will continue to have that snap.
Alternate realities, right?
Yes.
Yeah, branch realities.
Yeah.
And I have a feeling, obviously, we're going to have to wait till June because that is pretty much what the Loki show is probably going to be based about. Like
Yeah.
fixing all the branch realities.
Yeah,
The
all the
unity.
reality, especially all the realities after he jumped away.
Yeah.
Uh,
Because
that-
after he supposedly jumped away, then he's probably not going to be there in Thor Ragnarok in that reality on Sakaar and then getting choked by Thanos.
oh yeah,
You
he'll have
know,
to.
this can be covered in the What If series, which is coming.
Yeah.
Oh, we
Yeah,
already.
Let's before that, let's see how they cover it in the Loki show.
Yeah.
Because that's what that TVG organization, the TVA, the Time Variance Authority, are going to use him for to fix all the realities.
Loki is probably going to be an interesting version of time travel because yes, time variance authority exists, and that they have to fix it. That's going to be a very interesting take on time travel, and I can't wait to see that in July. Hashtag not sponsored by
June, June,
June.
July. You want to
Oh,
give me?
oh wait,
It's
it's coming out before Black Widow.
Yes.
yeah.
Oh, that's
June
even
11th.
better. That's even
No,
better.
they changed it again.
June 9th?
It's June 9th.
Yeah, 2 days back. 2 days
Yeah,
prior
Oh.
to
they
the.
yeah, because they put it's now Wednesday. He had to come before Thor in something, so why not before Thursday?
No, see, here's the thing. Here's the thing. That is just Loki being evil, right?
Yeah.
No. I believe that. Loki coming out 2 days early is not for anyone's benefit except for Loki to be evil because we would all wait for the
Of
weekend.
course.
Okay, office will be over and we can just chillax and watch. And like, no, now we have to watch
Yeah.
Loki and then go to office the next day.
Yeah, yeah. No weekend to process everything that happens in the episode.
Right? So like that's just
Yeah.
Loki being Loki.
Yeah, you have a meltdown while going to work. Sounds about right.
Anyway, back to the topic before we went to Loki.
We're
Alt-
punching off.
yeah, the timeline, the alternate timeline is also covered in what we all know as the Flashpoint paradox.
Yes, but alternate timeline, yes, that we discussed an alternate timeline in the Flashpoint paradox. But my issue is that the alternate timeline shouldn't have technically existed,
Technically, yeah.
right? But technically, if you follow that's if you follow the traditional time travel rules, like they talk about in Hot Tub Time Machine, in Back to the Future, in Terminator, all of these movies. The traditional rules of time travel, if you follow that, Flashpoint paradox shouldn't have existed. But if you follow the endgame style of rules, then technically Barry should have still had his powers when he came back into the future,
Yeah.
right? So that, as much as I'm not saying that Flashpoint Paradox isn't an amazing storyline, like I love it.
We gave it an S, so
Yeah, we gave it an S. I loved the comic when it came out. I loved the movie that came out a year or two later. I absolutely love Flashpoint Paradox, but it doesn't change the fact that the time travel aspect of Flashpoint Paradox still kind of bothers. And I can ignore it for the goodness of the movie, but like
I would
Can
really
you
like to see a Thomas Wayne being Batman. So
we already have a multiverse movie coming out for Flash, where we might see some variations on Batman. Oh, why haven't we talked about the biggest offender when it comes to time travel? Like the biggest offender when it comes to time travel. The TV show that has time travel built around it and it makes little, very, very little nonsense time travel rules, nonsense episodes, everything. And we haven't talked about it, and most of us have seen it. I think except Junaid. And it's Legends of Tomorrow.
yeah, I
oh
haven't.
god.
I missed out on a lot.
I actually haven't finished it either.
Like,
I haven't seen the current season, but yeah.
like that is the show that is the biggest offender to time travel. Let's go back in time. Who are we saving today? George Lucas. Sure. Right? Hey, George Lucas, let's put you in this trash compactor. That won't inspire anything.
Will it?
Like, let's use telekinesis in front of you. That won't inspire you to write something. Hey, look at that giant boulder. Let's run from it. That won't inspire anything.
Let's put him on a spaceship.
Mhm.
That won't lead to anything happening. I mean, like,
Nope, not at all.
why would it? I mean, like, why would he remember that?
Why would he then choose to write a multi-billion dollar franchise out of it?
Why? It's not inspiring at all.
Not at all inspiring. I mean, like, why would it?
Now
It's a common day thing.
we have to go our whole lives remembering that Ray Palmer is the reason that Star Wars exists. Like Brandon Ruth is the reason that Star Wars exists. Canon confirmed.
Oh, God.
Right? I mean, that show, when it comes to time travel, it butchers time travel so bad. I mean, the first season handled it kind of nicely, right? Where the time travel they didn't mess with major arcs in history or anything like that. But then they started messing with everything.
Yeah.
There's like, oh look, a
And you were,
Trojan War.
and you were complaining about Doctor Who.
Exactly. I mean, in that show, at least if they mess it up, somehow in the end things work out and nothing is changed in the future. I mean, when the Charles Dickens episode happened, he still ended up writing great books.
You forget about the end of season 1, the Dalek War that happened almost solely because of the Doctor.
Oh, I cannot forget that. Because that episode broke my heart, and not to mention the fact that they covered it up in the future seasons and they showed what had happened afterwards as well.
When I get to it, I find
I
out.
think
But anyway,
You have. God.
It's okay, Kanza. His brain is mush. It's okay.
Legends of Tomorrow is
Yeah.
probably the worst time travel show. Legends of Tomorrow is a fun show to watch.
But also the best. But also the best.
It's the best CW show. I mean,
Yeah.
like,
Yeah.
it's the best CW show hands down. Like the most fun to watch, most entertaining. But it's the worst when it comes to time travel. Like it doesn't make any sense. Its rules are messed up. It doesn't understand what it wants. It's like, hey, look, it's Helena of Troy. Let's just pull Helena of Troy out from this timeline where she's supposed to be. Oh, now we've pulled her out. That won't have any impact on the future. Let's just put her on Themyscira.
Awkward silence.
Why?
I'm actually still bothered about the Doctor Who. So
I mean, oh, turns out Then they go through the history book. Turns out Helena of Troy disappeared from the Battle of Troy. No shit, you pulled her out from it. Like, that show. Like sometimes they show, yes, we affected the past, and other times they're like, that didn't do it. Yeah, we just exposed the cavemen to fight, to the ability to shoot lightning bolts and everything like that, and mechanical armors. That won't have an impact on the future. Hey, look, Vandal Savage, where did you come from?
Half of them will literally hang it if we were that famous.
I can see his brain exploding. There.
Before I rant about the Legends of Tomorrow time travel for the next 2 hours, anybody else have anything else to say that's not Doctor Who related? I'm looking at you, Kanza.
Supernatural, Groundhog Day.
Yeah.
That was an amazing example of Groundhog Day. I think that's probably the first time I was introduced to that concept.
Groundhog Day's loop. I always hated that loop. I mean, Groundhog Day is an amazing movie. Right?
So what time travel hook do you like?
The time travel, the closed loop. I mean, I made that clear. Were you guys not listening? Was I speaking in Farsi?
Maybe.
That makes the most sense. The closed loop.
Yeah, the closed loop makes the most sense. That's the time travel rule I like. Right? But
it's all neat and tidy with no repercussions.
Exactly. There's like
no headaches. Like, where's the fun?
exactly like
Life's
no,
not
what
fun.
makes it
forget fun. I don't want to sit here with a headache. I don't want to go through 20 pages of notebooks trying to figure out how that time travel made sense.
Wait,
that's the fun of it.
but okay.
Like, Groundhog Day is a good concept. The ability to relive the same day over and over again, like the same day loop, right? So like you go to bed, like it's also an Edge of Tomorrow, right? Where every time he dies, he wakes up at the beginning of the same day. Now, that gets old real fast, right?
It becomes repetitive for the first few times until you start to figure out, okay, this is a time loop, and start doing things differently.
Yeah.
But again, the end conclusion is always the same until you can figure out how to stop it.
Yes, but ultimately, even when you figure out, okay, I'm stuck in a closed loop, how much fun can you actually have in a closed loop, right? Let's say that the closed loop's on a Monday. How many Mondays do you think you can take off of work before you give up and decide to go to work? Like, realistically speaking.
Quite a big number.
Like,
quite a big number.
Okay, you want to travel, right? Okay, I'm in America. I want to travel to Japan. Hey, look, it's a 10-hour flight with a 16-hour layover. Oh, look, I woke up back in bed again. I never got to Japan. Like, there's that kind of stuff. Oh, wait, I forgot to account for the time difference. Nope, still won't work.
Just barely.
You know the movie which reminds me of the same thing, which is kind of an inspiration from the Groundhog Day, was Before I Go to Sleep. I don't know if you've seen the movie or not.
I definitely haven't.
It's like a woman wakes up and she has an accident and she experiences the same thing over and over again. When she sleeps, she wakes up on the same day again, experiencing the same thing
right.
again.
Yeah, I remember that movie.
There was this movie which is Nicole Kidman, right? Before I Go to Sleep.
Yeah.
And there was another movie which came out which was similar, but Before I Fall or something. I don't remember the name. Before I Fall, I think. I haven't seen that movie, but that was the same thing, which she learns to do it again and again. She knows what's going to happen. So that's similar to Groundhog Day. But the Groundhog Day concept can be a better thing and can be a nightmare as well. So that's the two movies which define it.
Hmm.
Truth is that Groundhog Day, Edge of Tomorrow, supernatural concepts, they're fun until they're not, right? Like I can't imagine myself living today over and over again,
Yeah, no.
right? Like,
Yeah. God no.
right. So I can't
I mean,
imagine. Yeah,
that way probably I will watch more episodes per day, but still,
yeah. That's about it, right? You'll get a lot of
yeah.
you'll get a lot of TV shows and stuff done, but you won't get any
But
work
nothing
done.
else.
You won't get any
Yeah.
work done.
Nothing else will move on.
Because like let's say you feel like, okay, I'm gonna work today, I have to write a report today. I'm gonna write this report today. You wake up, the report is gone because now it's the day from the beginning. Now you have to write that report again.
I'll just sit down and cry the very first time.
Right? There you go. Like it's fun
That
until
was the
it's
whole
not.
concept. In the before I go to sleep, she experiences the same thing, and then she literally gives up. Like I'm going to die at the end of the day anyway. So
Yeah, see, like it's fun until it's not.
Yeah.
Right? It always sounds good. Okay, okay, I'm gonna every time I wake up, I'm gonna start the next few episodes of One Piece or something. I'm gonna watch the
yeah,
next
but
few
you'll forget the
episodes.
previous one.
Though your memories will remain the same, I'm pretty sure.
Yeah.
Because in Groundhog
No,
Days,
but here's the thing. It's all like if you get to the end of as many episodes as have been made until then what?
The deja
You're
vu
repeating
effect.
that same day again. There aren't any more episodes being made. So
Deja vu effect.
yeah, I mean, look, it's like this. If I in the Groundhog Day scenario, right? I get up at
yeah.
6 a.m. Right? I start watching Jupiter's Legacy. Review coming
Yeah.
soon. Uh, I
Soon.
finished I finished a review Jupiter's Legacy. Then I watched Shadow and Bone, which I haven't seen yet. Sorry, Samin. But
Yeah.
like now that I've watched these two shows, I go to sleep. I wake up on the same day again. Right? It's
And
Sunday.
still the same season. Yeah, there's no season 2 for you to continue
There's
watching.
yes, there's no
Or
season two, but then there's other stuff. I still haven't watched a lot of the Netflix MCU shows. At least the last season of all of them. Season 3 of Daredevil, season 2 of all the other shows. I could start watching those, and then once I'm done with those, then I can watch something else. And then after I'm done with that, I could finish watching Doctor Who. And after that, I could watch all the seasons of Doctor Who that came before 2005. And then after that,
but again, like there was this joke going on like during quarantine, like it was a fake message, but like someone made a screenshot from Netflix that congratulations, you've reached the end of Netflix, and then there was a
Yeah.
question, now what?
yeah.
Now you start watching the good movies.
Yeah, but
Oh,
like that is only gonna happen until one certain point. I mean, how many times are you gonna sit in front of the TV and keep watching something with nothing else to do? I mean,
Bri-
without making progress on day-to-day life, what are you gonna do?
Kanja, you're questioning the life of every geek in the world right now.
Sitting in a geek episode. So
Yeah.
Like
Look,
you're
I'm in the middle of watching classic Who at the moment. Say yeah, that's like 40 seasons. So
like
I know I'm far from questioning it.
that's fine, but you're like literally questioning the lifestyle of like a billion people in the world right now, right? Like sitting, like it's like again, I've said this so many times already, but like the Groundhog Day effect, you could watch a lot of episodes over and over again, but then again, we bought it. It's like that thing all over again. It's fun until it's no longer fun,
Yep.
right? You could
Yeah,
continue.
it gets repetitive again at a point.
Yeah, exactly. You
just
get up every morning.
Like obviously it is repeating, but then it gets boring repeat.
just imagine
Like,
the
yeah,
amount of
like even
messages
you get sick of it.
we will have in a group if we start repeating the same day over and over
Yeah,
again.
the exact same messages every single time.
No, but that
Yeah.
also depends on you. If you send something else, then you can have a different conversation.
Yeah, imagine getting to memes before some meme sent them. No, like imagine that. Like Samin sent like God bless Samin for making us laugh every day in the podcast chat. But like she sends the most memes in the chat, Imagine one day getting up in a Groundhog Day style, being like, I'm tired of these memes, I'm sending them before somebody sets them.
I
Right?
mean, you still can.
She's the meme supplier. I just let her do what she wants.
Yeah.
You missed a perfect opportunity to call me the meme queen.
No, the supplier. Because
Supplier.
You're the supplier.
Supplier.
you're the only reason you're a supplier, not a queen, is because even your memes have varying quality, just like a supplier has varying quality.
Yeah.
At least I provide.
Yes, yes, and it keeps
Yeah.
us coming
That
back
is
for more.
true.
Man,
Yeah.
we've talked a fair bit about time travel now. Does anybody have any final thoughts before we sign off?
The only thing which I
Haven't
have
watched
is
Doctor Who, just watch it, please.
we will just have more episodes on time travel. That's what I know.
Oh yeah,
Yeah,
so
we should make this into a series or something.
coming soon. Yeah, I mean, we definitely, obviously, we couldn't cover all aspects of time travel with the dignity that they deserve in a podcast episode. But what this will do is serve as at least a starting point for us to maybe start dissecting other aspects of time travel, maybe individually, right? So let's see how that goes. So for now, since we don't have anything else to say, I think it's time that we close the Dhaba. Thanks everybody for watching. Don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe. It really supports the channel. We had a lot of views on our Marvel React, and it's great, but like 90+% of you are not subscribed to the channel. It would really help us a lot if you did subscribe and continue to watch our content. Until then, until next time, I'm signing off. Thanks everybody for contributing in the discussion. And we love everybody who subscribes. Mwah. Good night.
Good night.
Hey, I hope you liked that video. Be sure to like and subscribe if you haven't already. And check out these other videos. Somewhere, I can't see them, I'm blind. What am I doing?